Aloha, and welcome back to The Creative Life by the American Creativity Association's Austin Global Chapter. We are brought to you in creative partnership with Think Tech Hawaii. I'm your host, Phyllis Blees. Our guest is JoAnn Antonelli. JoAnn is a lifelong serial entrepreneur, teacher, artist, designer, and gardener. She joins us today in her role as the founder of the Creatrix Journey. We will learn how women can use the journey to call out their inner creatrix. And men, you can hear all about the ways that you can support us. So for now, stay tuned. We'll be right back in a moment. Aloha, JoAnn, and mahalo for being our guest today.
Aloha, Phyllis. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome. So tell us, what is this Creatrix Journey with emphasis on Creatrix, which is a fun word? What can you tell us?
It is. Well, Creatrix is the feminine version of creative, and I've gathered women to be creative, be inspired. Usually it's in pods of women. Around 8 to 10 women. We gather on via Zoom twice a month, and we just explore all kinds of things.
Well, so tell me about, so that's the mechanics of how you get together. What does it mean? What is the goal that you are drawn together to get in contact with?
Well, these women come from all over the country, so they don't know each other. Typically, I have a connection with them in some way or another. So they get to meet new women with new ideas. Usually, everyone's very gifted with an idea, so they bring that to the table. We have many times it's just impromptu conversations. We learn things, we inspire one another, we look at our year's goals. So it's a combination of all kinds of things that are not just creative, but inspiring, educational, and you meet new friends from all over.
Okay. So I know when we were preparing for the show, you talked about what it meant to come in contact with your inner creatrix as a woman. What is that secret sauce that you're going for? And then we'll come back and talk about what some of these sessions are like. And if there isn't anything more you need to say about it, that's fine too. But I was thinking about those values and the heart of your creatrix.
Right. Well, when I was first coming up with the idea to do this, I looked into my own personal values and things that I felt like were important in my life, and wondered if I guess there were other women that those things were important as well. Things like not only connection and community, but like I said, lifelong learning, inspiration, just soulful conversations, and just letting them lead wherever they want to lead, but hoping that when you leave that conversation, you were glad you were there and you feel like you brought something that can somehow change your life.
Okay. So then what made you make this pivot in your life of many hats,
right,
to create these journeys? What was going on with you?
Well, that was probably the bigger one. I was living in North Georgia and had just decided wanted a huge change. Sold our businesses and properties, everything, and moved to Portland, Maine. That was a year ago, and didn't know anyone in Portland, Maine. Basically went from full speed to being somewhere where you didn't know anyone, and winter. In fact, right now it's a blizzard outside. So that's what it does in the Northeast. And so I just thought, wow, there has to be post-COVID. I started thinking, everyone's on Zoom. Can we actually create relationships that are meaningful? So I started just throwing some invitations out or ideas out to some of my friends, and everyone was like, yes, I would love to do that. And that's how we started.
Okay. So you've moved across, well, on the same East Coast, but right, sort of across from one end of the continent to the other.
Exactly.
And you are in Portland, Maine first time, not knowing anybody, and it sounds to me like you were reanimated to find your own inner creatrix. And as you explained it to me, seeking that deep feminine power of creativity and that source of creativity.
Yes.
So you reached out, and before we get more into the mechanics, so what did that first meeting look like? And if the viewers today will be watching the show, what could they expect in holding an introductory pod for themselves or journey for themselves?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first meeting was obviously looking at a gallery of faces of people you didn't know. Everyone introduced themselves, where they lived, whatever they wanted to share. It could have been what they do, what they love, why they were here in the first place. And we just went around the whole little Zoom circle and just shared that. And at that time, we also decided to name it. I didn't want to be the one that actually named the group. So everyone threw different ideas and we went back and forth, and it came out as the Creatrix Journey. So that was one of the things we did. And then we talked about what the conversations could look like. Did we want to learn things? Did we want to bring guest speakers in that might share something with us? Did you want to have homework? Do you want to do some little project? So we just explored what each person that was in the group wanted to see happen. And then I put that together.
Okay, so give us a day in the life of being in one of those pods. What would be an example topic that you discussed?
The last time we met, we talked about the human design. Now, for those that don't know what that is, it's kind of a combination of the I Ching, the Kabbalah, astrology. It's another way of looking at who you are. It's based basically on the energy of a person. So there's 5 different energy types. So one of the gals in the group had done it. She loved it. In fact, 2 of the girls had done it and were very familiar with it and thought it has a lot of value in their life. And so the conversation was really great because everyone contributed. Some had never heard of it before, but were excited to get the book. And, and while we were on the actual call, 2 of them were printing their design out so they could say what they were. So it was fun. And I think everybody left that wanting to know more about what it meant, what they were in the human design. We also have done...
wait a minute. So you talked about the I Ching. I can't remember when I've last thought about the I Ching. So you said that first, and there's a book on the human design. And
there is a book on the human design.
It collects these resources like the I Ching and other chakras, I imagine. And
yeah, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but a guy came up with the design. It was channeled to him in some way. This way of understanding human beings, and so he wrote the design of the human design, and it's a little complicated, but astrology is complicated too. It's lots of pieces and parts, but it's really it's more personal. It's really more about understanding why you do what you do energetically. So yeah, it was, and that's all been part of it, the I Ching and the Kabbalah, and like I said, a few other things.
Okay. So you were going to tell us about another topic.
Yeah, well, we did do astrology. We actually had an astrologer recently had done my chart. She came on and talked about astrology. And I think since then, everybody has gotten their chart done by her. So that's been fun. And we did a session called Visual Thinking Strategy. We had... again, one of the girls in the conversation was very experienced with this. So we would look at a painting and everyone would say what they saw in the painting or how it made them feel. And that was very interesting too. That's kind of the whole movement that's out there right now, where medical students are going to galleries so that they can learn to see in a different way instead of a more left brain way, pumping into that right brain so that you can look at things with different details than you might by just thinking with your more fundamental process that a lot of people who are left brain do. So that was a really fun class. And what everyone saw was, and in fact, many times the art changed. We would see it one way and we'd say, oh, I didn't see that. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So that was a really fun session. And then we did
before you go to the next session, I just want to pick up on that. So looking at this art reminds me of the Rorschach, those Rorschach tests that I think psychiatrists would give patients. And there was some pattern in it. I don't know if you had any, you said that there was somebody in your group who could guide you through this process.
Yes.
Is there a philosophy to what you're seeing, or did you make it up as you go?
She could probably talk to that more than I could. I'm sure there is a philosophy to it because, I mean, we could just see it in our own little exercise, but she would explain how you were, how by everyone seeing things in a different way, what that actually meant. They use it a lot in, I think corporations use it, just, another way of thinking.
So, you know what, you remind me, I did something called integrative breathing. And that was developed by some of the early teachers at Esalen Institute up in California at Big Sur. And they, in the early days, in the 60s, I understand, they dropped acid in order to tap into their inner knowing. And integrative breathing is a non-drug inducement to that same state. And then after we went through this integrative breathing, which includes a deck of music that took you, it felt like 2001 Space Odyssey music. You just move through this journey. And then afterwards, everyone created their own mandala. And then the mandala told them a story from the picture about their inner self. Once you spent a half hour listening to this blasting music, or I guess dropping acid, if that was your journey taker of choice, and then looked at the mandalas. So that, that sounds to me like that would be a cool thing to have an integrative breath teacher in the room. You meet for an hour and a half, so there'll be plenty of time to do that. And then you build your mandalas. Okay.
I'm making notes, Phyllis.
Yeah. So
sounds like a conversation.
Tell us about another one.
Well, we also had one of the gals has written a book. It's called The Walking is a Sacred Path. Colin has done the Appalachian Trail. She just came back from doing base camp at Mount Everest. So she's a very avid hiker. And it's important for women to hike. And she's actually developed an entire clothing line that's much more woman-friendly, pretty and comfortable, and has all the little pockets that women need. And then she wrote this book. So the class was all about making sure you get out and walk in nature and understanding your connection to nature and the sacredness in that. We did a little meditation. It was a really great talk.
Lauren Artris, she's an Episcopal priest at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, brought back to the United States Labyrinth Walking. And I took her course. My son, when he was in 6th or 7th grade, signed me up for a workshop with Dr. Lauren Artris to do. And I had to fly into Pecos to New Mexico, to an abbey there, a monastery, where she came and taught us about labyrinth walking. And that very much is like walking a sacred path. And so it sounds very like if I was in your group, we would be generating 2 or 3 topics for down the line that we could, maybe elaborate on something that was a good fit for us.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I have these little baby labyrinths, So when
Yes.
I'm sitting at my desk sometimes, I just, kind of do the little walking with my finger.
Yes. I
Yeah.
had one. Grace Cathedral sells a crystal circle that has a labyrinth in it, and it's visceral. And you can walk it with your finger in the ridges. The only problem is it disappeared off my desk. I don't know who's walking the labyrinth, and I hope they don't have bad karma.
Right. Right. Someone
Or
liked it.
they desperately needed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So these truly sound like fun. Tell us how often you meet. Those are some of the topics. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the flow would go if I wanted to set one up.
Right. Well, we meet, and we agreed on this. We all talked about what we wanted to do. We meet twice a month. We meet on Thursdays. The time has changed a few times, but we typically meet from 10 to 11:30. First, it was just an hour. I thought, well, I didn't want to take too much of everyone's time, but everyone was like, well, if we wanted to talk longer, could we? So we said, well, yeah, we could push it to the hour and a half. And if we stay longer and if people want to talk more, we talk more, but we try to just, kind of not talk more than the hour and a half.
Okay, so that sounds like a coffee clash. I guess if you wanted to change the hour, you could have wine and cheese and kombucha, kombucha, whatever your enlightening beverage of choice is. That could be done at night with candles.
Yes, we could definitely do that. Yes.
That's kind of cool.
That could be fun. A whole different, but it'd be a whole different experience. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe we should one Thursday just do that as like a special event.
Yeah. In the morning or at night.
Yeah, at night. Just change the one Thursday to just do it. To have some wine and see what happens at night.
It'd be a whole different feeling.
They definitely would.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us some more. So
we just recently had the conversation because I have some other people that are interested in whether, we haven't added more to this group because it was kind of about getting to know them. So that's still at the experimental stage. If somebody's interested, we want to bring them into a group that's already or start another group with them. Those are things I'm still trying to figure out, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Everyone was kind of open. If there's just a few people, maybe that could be kind of fun to just bring them in. We also, at the point, it seemed like in our group, everyone had something pretty interesting that they could share. And so that's almost like you were learning about something you didn't know about, and you learned about that person that was in our group because that's been part of their life and their passion. So that's been kind of interesting, and it was a little unexpected that we learned that in the very first group that we had when everyone was sharing about where they were at and the things they'd been doing in the last few years. I was making my notes and said, oh, hey, you should come talk about this. So people that would want to start a group like that, for me, I just knew a lot of people across the country that I thought would really benefit from a group like this. And I initially started with I put out a letter that just said, hey, this is what I've been doing. This is what I'm thinking. Love for you to join. Are you interested to hear more? And I started with that letter. And then if they said yes, then I kind of went on to the next. We're thinking about twice a month, I'll send you a Zoom and we'll have that first conversation. And that's how we started.
What comes to mind for me? Two things. I'll talk process and then content. Process-wise, I am in several Zoom groups, of course, since COVID. And one of them is a woman who has been going through social and emotional issues, and she doesn't want to be seen, but she wants to connect. So she calls in, and this group is called the Seekers Group, and it's a spiritual group. And so she's able to call in and leave her video off. So she's not seen, but she can enter the room.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of cool. I just want to offer it to your group that maybe in your invitation letter, you could say for the shy ones or ones who don't have, however you're going to beautifully say it, because you're the entrepreneur, author, poet, and speaker. But in some way, let people know that they can come in incognito if they're a little shy for any reason, and then they can participate robustly in the conversation. And the woman I'm thinking of has brilliant ideas, and I'm so glad she felt brave enough to join from afar.
Yeah, that is a good point for somebody. That the other thing was a little some of and our group is, I didn't mention this, but the age is interesting. We go from mid-30s to the oldest is about to turn 81.
Okay.
So we have a very diverse group, and that's been really interesting too. How and I said the age simply because the older we are, the less techie we seem to be. So there's been a few challenges with that. So we've had to have a few classes on how to do a Zoom call.
Yeah. And you've only started this since January, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
For the viewers, it's only been in place about 3 months.
That's right.
Your age groups could greatly expand.
Yes.
And diversify. But even since the very beginning, you've had, it sounds like people have self-selected to come in based on interest, not on age or demographic or anything of that sort. What's kind of cool is why, just like social media, while Zoom is not ideal, and for a while there, it was all we had, there are some things that Zoom allows us to do that are unavailable in person. And so there's the lining and the silver lining there.
Right. Well, one of the things that came up recently, and I think this is really interesting about, when COVID happened and everyone went to Zoom, first there was like this whole negative thing about, we need the human connection, we need this. And that's true, no question about it. But for a lot of people, if you go to a gathering of 20 women, you may leave there never really having made a connection or had a conversation because you just may not be that person. You may be a person who's one-on-one. That's just what you do. You're not going to meet them all. But in Zoom, what I have found is you see everyone. You can sit there during that time and be looking at each individual person and what they have to say. And sometimes I find I like that. I didn't think I would like that, but I do like that. Because I'm one of those people that's like, when I go to somewhere, I'll find that one person I might connect with, and I can talk to them all night. But then I'll leave and go, oh, there were 18 other people there. So
You remind me that Zoom allows you to do breakout sessions, and it's free. It's part of the technology. So if you did want to have partners who talk for 5 or 10 minutes and come back in, I forgot about that. I don't use it much myself. And that's a cool tool. So
yeah, that is. And it's funny because some of the gals, Colin, when she was introducing her book to us and doing the talk, she was also getting ready to go out and do her first speaking engagement.
Oh,
so we were her guinea pigs.
Yes.
And several of the girls called her offline and gave her some really, what I thought was really constructive information about how to present to a group because they'd had that experience. So that was really
love that. Oh,
yeah,
that's perfect.
it was great.
Group.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm going to just put a placeholder. I want you to get to some of your organizational tips, but the content point I wanted to throw in is for years I've worked with groups that do something called Meeting of the Minds.
Yeah.
That was and when I first heard of your Creatrix Journeys, and you called them pods, I was reminded of Meeting of the Minds, which it kind of had a heyday, and I mean 20, 30 years ago. And they'd be table talks where people would meet and they would all sit down with the same question, kind of like bridge tables, but it was a question table.
Right.
And it does sound to me like you're throwing a question into the center of your pod, very much like the Meeting of the Minds. So share with us, if you would, some of your organizational tips in our just a couple minutes.
Yeah, of course, I start out with the simple invitation letter. The other thing we do is we got onto Google Docs, which has been very helpful, so that if someone does a presentation and they have other literature that people might want to read about to learn more about it, they put that in there. We record the Zooms so that if you miss, you can listen to one. We also do, we have a messenger so that that just goes all the time, just if you want to send a little quick message out to somebody. What else do we do on that? We recently added, someone's always bringing something up, like the 122-year-old woman that just died. And so she said, I'll put the article up there so you can read, so we all know how to live that healthy life of smoking and drinking till you're 122. So those are just, something. We have, of course, a web page that's basically, it's pretty basic. I blog on it a lot. Talk about maybe some of the experiences that we've had as a group or that I've had from being in the group. Instagram, Facebook. That's pretty much, our usual social media stuff.
Well, thank you. And I think we're going to have to leave it right there. I want to let the viewers know that you have been watching The Creative Life on Think Tech Hawaii. Our guest today is JoAnn Antonelli, and she's the founder of the Creatrix Journeys. Mahalo, JoAnn, for joining us. And mahalo to our viewers for tuning in. I'm Phyllis Blees, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of The Creative Life from the American Creativity Association. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching Think Tech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.